Welcome to the Art of Becoming Whole, where we explore the edges of the human experience from the therapy room to the meditation cushion and beyond. My name's Kevin Stansbury, LCSW. I'm an intuitive, holistic psychotherapist.
And my name is Justin Tang. I'm a certified hypnotist. Guess you could say trauma-informed coach, but not that that means anything. Uh, and a psychotherapy grad student. And I'm really excited to dig into what we're going to talk about, which who the hell knows. But also, I'm starting my practicum, and I'm really excited about the different holistic experiential therapies that I'll be learning.
Cool. Yeah, what are we going to talk about?
Well, I thought since you came from your silent retreat, I wasn't sure if that was going to be an object of conversation or focus, or we never. I know last time you mentioned talking about the subconscious, or we could talk about anxiety, depression. Uh, yeah, talk about how good that smells. The latest cologne. Yeah, pheromones.
Yeah, let's talk about all of it.
Yeah.
Um, I could start by sharing a bit about my experience. Um, So I went on a Zen meditation retreat. It was a 7 day silent retreat, and at a Yokoji Zen Mountain Center, which is in Mountain Center, California, just outside of Idlewild. Great place. Really highly recommend it. And so, hmm, what to share about it? Well, first of all, I'd like to correct I'd like to correct uh, a misconception that I
Oh,
think a lot of people have about maybe about meditation in general, definitely about meditation in general, and then also about retreats, meditation retreats. And I think that, I'm not like a yoga expert, so I can't critique the westernized presentation of yoga as much, but I think that the westernized presentation of yoga skewed the perception of meditation as well. Because if I tell someone, most people, I'm going on a meditation retreat, a lot of people were saying, have fun. Or like, oh, that sounds so nice, so relaxing.
yeah.
And it's like, well, okay. So if I think about the experience of yoga and I don't know, having some candles and nice music, and it's about paying attention to your body and breath, and then you get at the end you get to do savasana and lie down and just like feel good, and I don't know, there's this whole package of just like calmness and oh, that's nice, it's self-care and all that stuff. And meditation is not that. It isn't, and it's the way it's been presented in the West and stolen by the personal development and psychotherapy communities. And this is partially the fault of insurance companies that want everything to be medical model based. That's actually probably a big part of it. But stress reduction, it's a stress reduction technique. It's for calming. I feel mad just saying it.
Well, I mean, isn't there some kind of stress reduction effect or a calming effect that meditation can have for people, for some people?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a good metaphor off the top of my head, but I don't right now, of something similar where it's like, I don't know, like some like a smaller side effect of doing something gets blown up as the main thing that it does. It's like, sure, yes. Also, um, you can, much like therapy, and this is part of our never-ending discussion, uh, it can be what you want it to be. So how you use it makes a big difference, and you can use it. And I guess this is true for maybe any healing thing. I'm thinking psychedelics, psychotherapy, meditation. Your intention going into it and what you're trying to do makes a world of difference. And so yeah, if you want to use meditation for stress reduction, for increasing calm, you can do that and it'll work. And I shouldn't be so pissed off about it. That's like that's like that's a good thing. Overall net positive, you know. That's um but I also feel, I guess my passion about it is that it's robbing people of the knowledge, wisdom, really, that is really that's embedded in this practice. And this is the origination of the practice wasn't let me sit down so that I can calm myself down a little bit, or let me sit down so I can decrease stress. I mean, I'm kind of making this up. I don't know for sure, but my understanding, this was something that one of the Roshis, who's that's like a Zen priest, what he said, he was talking about the history of meditation and how, to the best of our knowledge, the first recorded uh, occurrence of meditation practice was 5,000 BCE. It's just like, a cave drawing of someone meditating or something. I would argue it's probably older than that, but well, that's a whole other thing. Um, but they use it to discover what the true nature of reality is, and what the true nature of the self is. That that was, I don't know, I can't say that was the initial thing. The very first person who did it was like, this is what's going to happen. I don't know what they did. They probably just sat down and didn't have much to do, so they were like, I'll just sit here, I guess, and then came into
Meditation was born.
yeah, some
Hilarious.
great insight. So yes, so you know, more power to you if you want to use meditation as a way to, let's just say, like decrease anxiety, increase calm, decrease stress. You can do that. You can put on some nice music. You can use Insight Timer or one of these other apps. Put on a guided meditation that has that floaty meditation music behind it. It's kind of nice. And I've done that. So I'm like sitting here judging, but I've done that. But this is not the real power of meditation. That to me, that's a band-aid. That's, you might as well like pop a Xanax or something. I mean, it's better than a Xanax if you're using meditation for stress reduction, but it's a band-aid. It's okay, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna calm things down for a minute, and then I'll just do that again later when I get stressed again. It doesn't address the root cause, which is what I'm really passionate about. And so a 7-day meditation retreat where you're meditating, that's particularly, I'll say, a traditional Zen retreat, the structure of it, which is like 5 a.m. Well, this is how they organize it. It's like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. and the whole day is scheduled. It's not meditating that whole time. You are practicing that whole time, but about 7 hours of meditation a day. And that's miserable. Miserable. Like,
Yeah,
sorry, go.
yeah. I mean, I'm thinking like, why would you subject yourself to that kind of torture? Is what I'm wondering.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. And I'll get into it. There's it's not like the whole thing's miserable. It's not that I'm saying don't do it. You're a little blurry again. But I just want you to know that that meditation is hard. It's hard, and the misconceptions are like ubiquitous. They're just all over the place. It's either for stress reduction, it's for calm, it's for quieting your mind. You're supposed to be able to quiet your mind. And again, the tricky part is that there are probably thousands of different types of meditation and with different aims. And so, and I'm not trying to make all these other ones wrong. I do a bunch of different ones myself, but when I think of meditation, I think of what's at the core of it really, and stripping away all the bells and whistles, what's the most important thing? Well, to me, the most important thing, uh, which contradicts something that I said in a previous episode, is enlightenment. It's really coming to see what we really are and what's really going on here, and then embodying that, learning how to embody that in day-to-day life.
Now, is that something that they actually help you do, that latter part, right? So you go into the retreat. Obviously, it's very difficult, but you have some kind of experience and insight, enlightenment, you know, thing. How do you then go and embody that in everyday life?
Well, to answer your first question, I think that they do. They help you with that. I mean, so this retreat's like, I want to call it 95% silent. And what I mean is that, well, one, they put us to work, so I was doing some landscaping stuff, and then I was on breakfast cleanup. So during those times, I could speak if I needed to get something done. So if it's necessary. And then most of the days they had what they call a Dharma talk, where one of the sometimes it was the Roshis. There were two Roshis. There was also a sensei, and then someone else. I'm not quite sure what her title was, but so they'd have different people talk for I don't know 40 minutes, an hour, and they're talking about the Dharma, which is like the Buddha's teaching or Zen. And so they would talk for that time. We wouldn't talk. And then there were maybe like two times a day where we would have the option to go meet one on one with one of the Roshis. And then these meetings last for 1 to 5 minutes, maybe. So those are the times when we can talk. But those meetings, the one-on-one meetings, and then the Dharma talks too, I think are very instructive as far as how to live this. The Zen practice of meditation is called Zazen. And ew, what did you just do? He like spit on me.
Huh.
Gross. Um, Zazen. So Zazen is a sitting meditation practice characterized by the way I would describe it at least is by uh, doing nothing. They call it just sitting. Also, it's also called shikantaza, just sitting. So you sit and you're not trying to reach some sort of goal. You're not trying to quote unquote reach enlightenment. You're not necessarily focused solely on a single point of concentration like the breath. You're not necessarily focused on um, anything in particular. It's more like sitting down and letting go and watching what happens. And so, oh, yeah, so that's the sitting practice, but also, and maybe I've said this before, probably I'll say it again, that to me, meditation practice doesn't end when you get off the cushion. Being on the cushion is like going to the gym. It's like an intensive period of practice. But then you go into the rest of your life, and um, ideally, you can use whatever happened on the cushion in the rest of your life. But also, it's like it's a way of being. You're just grounded in this particular way of looking. So they talk a lot about that, about how to, I guess, yeah, how to embody it, how to live it.
Okay.
What
Um,
was there was a second thing that you said?
oh yeah, yeah. I think you addressed that. Yeah, I think my second question was how do you go about embodying it, right? Like how do you actually apply that in daily life? And do they help you with that? Which I guess they do.
Yeah, and the how. I've been thinking about it. I think that I mean, I guess it's consciousness, like so much. It's so important to remember what you're doing. Like just if it's zazen, if it's mindfulness, which to me I think I'm like blending them all together, and so I'm not totally sure where the lines are. But um but that what did I just say?
You weren't sure if you were blending them all together.
No, the thing before that.
Uh,
I lost my train of thought.
I'm actually not sure either.
Oh, remembering.
Oh,
That's funny.
yeah.
I forgot about remember. Um, that that it's crucial if you don't remember that mindfulness is an option, then you won't practice it. If you don't remember to reorient your perspective or your being into wholeness, then you're just going to forget about it and get caught up in day-to-day human life and get swept away. So it seems like in a big way, that's a huge part of it. It's just remembering to have it at the forefront of my consciousness all the time. Um, but it's also, you know, we get into the paradox territory because, it's like if you're in a flow state, you are you've forgotten about yourself. But simultaneously, you're right there. Like you are so yourself in that moment, but also you've forgotten.
Right.
So it's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm reading this Zen book um, by Dogen that I got there, and the book isn't by Dogen, but it's like about his writings, and he's like a prolific Zen figure, and he was saying something like focus on zazen or on enlightenment like your head's on fire or something like this. Like that it's like a crucial thing that you need to pay attention to and never drop the ball.
But okay.
Yeah. But then when you are, quote unquote there, then you've forgotten about the ball, but you haven't dropped it.
Hmm.
I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think remembering is a huge part, and then I think dealing with unconscious stuff is a huge part. That
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
maybe that at least what I have heard and read is that piece is basically the gift of the West. That's like that wasn't um, maybe specifically included in traditional Zen practice or certain Buddhist practices that were more about enlightenment. Sure, also developing a compassionate attitude toward your own mind. There's a lot of psychological wisdom in Buddhism, which is why I like it so much. But specifically the development of psychotherapy and addressing the unconscious, to me, that's hugely important as well.
So,
To
so
yeah.
they wouldn't have said that, like the Roshis or the people at the Zen retreat, they wouldn't have mentioned that.
They didn't put it like that. I don't know. I like, these guys were awesome. I have not been around somebody who I aspire to be like so much in like 15 years or something. I mean, ever probably since I saw Ajashanti last. Like these guys are awake. And so they're not bogged down by Zen. They're not weighed down by dogma. So they might, I don't know what they would say about this conversation, but I have a feeling they would be open to it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
And there was this one uh Junpo Dennis Kelly Roshi. He died not that long ago. But a lot of my friends were into him and practiced with him. And he was like somehow connected to the integral world. And he has a fascinating story. Uh, but he developed something he called Mondo Zen, and it was like Zen practice. I think he was from the Rinzai school, so Rinzai Zen plus shadow work.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that myself, and I do feel like there's a bi-directional relationship between meditation and what I do. I think what I do is mindfulness. What I've been taught was like more of Vipassana, mindfulness meditation. And yeah, so I think there's like a bi-directional relationship between practicing mindfulness and then also doing, you can call it shadow work, the inner work, emotional healing, whatever it is. And I think as you do both actually get better and like easier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So did you get like a crazy insight or did you reach enlightenment?
So let me finish a previous thought and then I'll answer that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I ever like fully expressed that. I guess I did kind of. I was just saying that it's hard. It's hard work because what you're doing, well, one, it's not like we were meditating for 7 hours straight, but throughout the day, 7 hours. And then also, there's no speaking, there's no phone, there's no internet. You're not allowed to read or write. So so it's meditation, eating, cleaning, and then I went on some hikes. This is basically it. And so the whole thing is practice. Uh, I think just the silent part drives a lot of people crazy. That wasn't that hard for me this time. But the sitting, well, one, it's really hard on the body to just sit in meditation posture for that long, and you can sit in a chair if you really need to or whatever. But yeah, just after the first day, my back was killing me and my butt's killing me, and that drives my mind crazy. And so then my mind is like, all right, how long's it been? When's this dude gonna ring the fucking bell? I need to get out of here. I can't, like, it starts to panic. Like, I cannot continue sitting in this pain. It's got to end. And which is a wonderful opportunity to practice sitting with resistance. And so that ends up being, I think, for most people, a large portion of the practice. At least maybe there's just a particular phase of this. Maybe it comes and goes. I don't know. But this is true for me that a large portion of the practice is encountering my resistance and getting frustrated. So Tuesday, that's the second full day, 2.5 days in. Um, I had a really good day. A lot of people report that the first half, maybe, is a lot of resistance, and you're just like going through all the mental activity. And then maybe you sink into a deeper stillness, it becomes easier, something like that. Didn't quite go that way for me. Tuesday, I was just there. It was just like, I don't know why, but it just was easy. Everything was profoundly still and silent, and I had incredible experiences of oneness that were the deepest I've had outside of psychedelics. And also, as even though I was noticing that, it wasn't like a big deal. I guess at this point I'm just familiar with it, so it was just like, oh yeah, this thing, this oneness thing. But Wednesday, I go to sit down, and where's the where's the oneness thing? What happened? And then so Wednesday, Thursday, half of Friday, my mind is really struggling. It's like trying to get back to that stillness, silence, the oneness. And then I'm also aware of what's happening. So I'm like, well, this is resistance. This is the thing that keeps me from that. And so then I'm resisting my resistance. And so those are the loops. And I also started to notice that the mind just flips back and forth for no reason. It flips like from um, just the supreme place of struggle, dissatisfaction, like something's not okay. I don't even know what it is. Something's not okay, and I need to do something to get to the okay place. And then it flips in a second to the other side where it's like, oh wait, I'm just like making all that up and everything's fine and everything's perfect. Perfectly okay. Resistance is fine. I don't need to struggle. And then it just flips right back. And so I was just watching that happen. One of the Roshis, the two Roshis, Tenshin Roshi and Jokai Roshi. Jokai Roshi gave a Dharma talk, I think on Friday, and I don't remember all of what he said, but it just really struck me. and it helped me tweak something in my practice. Um, Mainly, he was talking about how, the mind, this is just the nature of the human mind, to create problems and to solve them. And that is just the nature of the mind. There's no way to stop it. It will always do that. It will always move toward what it likes and try to push away what it doesn't like. And it'll always try to diagnose an issue and solve it. This is just what it does. But that our true nature that's always here uh, has no problem with it. There's no qualm with anything, even your own mind. So your human mind can be doing the human mind thing that it does, and you can be not sucked up in it. You can be resting in this space where it's there's no problem. There's just nothing wrong. And that is the truth. And so it just that sunk in deeper for me. And then I think I also just like struggled enough to expend the energy behind it. And then it bottomed out and something changed. And then I just stopped fighting with my thoughts.
At the end.
Yeah, like Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, it was like that. And so then I'm just watching this swirling mass of manifestation and the manifest and the unmanifest. I'm listening to the birds chirping, listening to the building creaking. I'm seeing the people around me, feeling my breath. Then I get sucked into a thought. Then I go down this whole train of thought, and then I pop out on the other side, and then I'm back in the room, and it's like just everything all at once, and it's fine.
Have you noticed subtle changes after that retreat?
Yeah, yeah, maybe more than subtle. This was profound for me. I mean, I've known that thing that I just said about that there's no, from the perspective of the absolute, there's no problem. And um and it just to say it accepts is too active. It's just it's like already in complete allowance of everything. That it doesn't even need to perform the action of acceptance because it just embraces it automatically. It is it's embracing itself in whatever form. And um so anyway, I had my ideas about all this. I've had my tastes of it and some experience with it. But I think I didn't realize how how much I was still resisting. Which is the beautiful thing about doing a meditation retreat. You just got nowhere to go. So nothing to do, nowhere to go, no distraction. And so you get a clear read of where you're at, really. Maybe it's the mm, I'm disagreeing already. I was gonna say maybe it's the only way to get a clear read because it's like you have to get still and silent enough for long enough to really encounter what's here.
Right.
So Yeah, so I think that I discovered just how much I'm in resistance, like how much of the time I spend in resistance and to what degree that resistance is there. It's a lot. It's actually a lot. And that's okay. Um, but there's like I don't know how to say this. There's resistance and then there's resistance. There's resistance where it's like I'm just spinning in circles. It's suffering. I'm just suffering. And then there's resistance that's allowed, and so it's not suffering because it's allowed to be there, it's allowed to move. But even if it is suffering, it's so deeply allowed that it doesn't matter that it's suffering. But there is a distinction here. I wish it was easier to articulate, but this is like the heart of all of this stuff that there's the sort of resistance that you have when you're identified with resistance, which is just fruitless suffering. And it just continues until you're lucky enough to for it to stop, basically. Um, and then there's resistance where you are not identified with it. But then there's resistance where you're identified with it, which is just gonna happen sometimes, but then you know that it happens so you can disidentify with all of that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I know you're following me. I've probably lost 90% of people just there.
Yeah. The way I conceptualize it, because I started with the Sedona method, which is very mindfulness based. So the way I view it is you have to get a layer of acceptance somewhere. And if you're resisting the resistance, can you accept that you're resisting the resistance? If it's no, that's okay. Could you accept that you're resisting resistance? And so on and so on and so on and so forth until you just get to a point where, okay, I can accept whatever it is that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it does sound like weird and just maybe a little insane. Um, but you have to experience it for yourself multiple times, in my opinion. It's a
Yeah.
practice. Yeah.
And this is what I focus on a lot in psychotherapy with people is the meta layers of either resistance, acceptance, judgment, whatever. That, most people want to focus on whatever they want to focus on, but usually they're coming from a place of pretty extreme self-judgment about the thing in the first place, and so that poisons the entire endeavor of I want to fix this thing because there's something wrong with me that needs fixing, and it colors everything. And so we got to slow down, pop out of that, look at that meta level of you're judging yourself for this experience that you're having. And then probably you're judging yourself for the judgment that you have about it,
Sure. Yeah.
and so on and so forth, until there's like some kind of a relaxing on that meta level. This thing can just be the way it is.
Uh, I'm curious, how has that been received? Because I'm imagining if I'm a client, I would not get it for one. And then I'd probably be like, but you don't get it. Like you're not like listening to me. Right? So yeah, I'm just curious how that's been received?
Yeah, I mean, pretty well. I think I approach it, it's an art to me. So I'm not just going in with the sledgehammer of truth, of of yeah, but that's an illusion. That doesn't matter. You got to look at this meta thing. I'm not going to do that. Um, I I wanted the word delicate comes to mind. It's like I move delicately with it because people's pain is important to me. It's not just something to be brushed aside as illusory. It's like then this is where you're at, this is what you're experiencing. I want to know about that, and I want to attend to all of it. So we'll take our time. We'll take our time, and some people are a lot more receptive to jumping into this weird world of paradoxical healing stuff. Um, and then other people, it takes a little bit of time and maybe a different type of language.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can't, in this moment, I can't think of anyone who's particularly put off by it all. Like at some point, something about that makes sense. And it might still be frustrating to them. I know I for sure have clients where there are phases and sometimes they get really frustrated with it and their mind wants to return back to, yeah, but this problem, I've got this problem. It needs to be addressed. Something's wrong with me. And it's just it sucks them back in to that. And so then, okay, so then we acknowledge that, and then I like to bring in different things to try to create an experience so that it's not just a cool idea. It's not just, and I think that's the most important part because if we don't create an experience together, then it's just bullshit. It's just like talking, we're just talking and it's an idea and cool. Okay, so I'm judging myself for judging myself. It almost makes you feel hopeless. It's like, okay, well, what the fuck do I do with that? So there has to be some sort of tangible, practical thing where it's like, oh, okay, like I can actually feel the difference. I think I've had to point that out. I'm thinking of one person in particular, but with a lot of people, I've had to point out the difference in their energy and their being, their body, how they're talking, the speed that they're moving from one moment to the next so that they can see the impact that, for example, slowing down and just letting yourself feel the impact that that has as compared to staying up in the mind just like talking about all the issues. So to wrap up the recap of the retreat, I don't know exactly what I was expecting. I signed up with very little forethought. So it wasn't like I knew what I wanted to get out of it or why I was going. I didn't. I just thought about it and it felt right. And I just felt moved to go, basically. And I knew I would get whatever I need, like that it would. I just had a feeling that this is the perfect time to do this. And and I'm not surprised by what happened, the difficulty of it, all of it. This is my first 7-day retreat, so I um, didn't. have that experience, but there was just an intuitive sense of what it would be like. That, there'll probably be all these different movements, probably be some profound oneness and stillness, probably be mostly encountering resistance and then learning something about it. And so that's what happened. So coming back, um, I think that there's been a much higher degree of attunement to myself, maybe to others too, maybe just everything. But of really noticing when that identification with resistance is there, when that cycle of me fighting with myself is there. And then it's not quite right to say I know what to do with it or about it now, but there's just, it just seems like it's easier for me uh, to rest as the space, like just to settle back into awareness and just allow it to be. The other thing I want to say, which I think is important, is, when I got in my car to leave, I put on some music and I felt immediately overstimulated. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Um, and it really made me see how jam-packed my life has been with noise, with just visual and auditory stimulation, whether it's TV or the phone, um, or even music, that I think it's really bad for us. I think that our natural state, actually, it's like we require a lot of silence for the nervous system to regulate itself. And that we get really overstimulated with all the stuff going on. So that was kind of cool to see too. And it really motivated me to, for the most part, to not slip into these old habits, particularly with the phone. It's just you could fill up every free moment just immediately reaching for your phone and scrolling and doing whatever. And I can feel it now. It's like it doesn't feel good. There's a, I want to call it an anxiety, I guess, but it's like just an activation. Just need to be still, do nothing. And then one last thing I'll say is I notice now that it's so easy to meditate for 30 minutes. That's like nothing. I can do that every day, no problem.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever meditated for 30 minutes, so have I? I don't know.
I recommend it. There's actually so much more I could say about it. There are all these little things, but um, I may bring them up later.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, sounds like it was a profound retreat.
Yeah. And just a little anecdote, it's, to highlight what I was saying earlier, that at the end, they break the silence and we go around and everyone shares a little bit if they want to about their experience. And I have a fair amount of meditation experience and experience with all this stuff that we talk about. Um, but a lot of the people there were more experienced than me, uh, maybe older and maybe just more into traditional practice or whatever. There were 21 people, I think, and maybe 13-ish of them were staff.
Really?
Yeah.
So they get to participate.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
they're some of them, I don't know the story behind everyone because we were all quiet. But a good portion of them live there. They live and work there. They're helping with organizing everything, but then they're also practicing with us. So so yeah, it was a small group actually of people from the outside coming in to do the retreat. But anyway, going around in the circle, there's not one person that says, "Oh, that was so nice." In fact, there are multiple people that are like, "I'm just glad it's over."
Hilarious. Yeah.
But I know I'm doing a great job selling it. Uh,
Yeah.
but to me, it's fruitful. It's like a boot camp
Hmm.
for some sort of working out or exercise or something. It's like intensive practice, and it's hard, and it's really stretching you, and it sucks at times. Other times, it's actually fun, and and maybe feels good, but it's hard. It's really hard, and then at the end, you can um, discover the fruits of that labor. So I was already basically on this bandwagon before and on my pulpit proselytizing or whatever. But now I'm like, I think everyone should do that at least once in their life. They should do a 7-day silent retreat. And I'll put the caveat, if you want to be free from suffering, then you should do that. If you don't, then don't waste your time.
I've thought about these different meditation retreats. I think my main concern is that, well, one, yeah, the whole back thing, first off. Yeah. The pain of just sitting there in that position. But I think my second concern about these type of things is I'm wondering how transformative they are afterwards. And I guess, yes, part of me wants to just have the experience to know what that's like. But I think another part of me is just kind of tired of the whole, oh, this is what's possible. But it's not going to be possible for your everyday life. Like, um, yeah, I'm wondering, like, is it really going to be truly worth it after the fact?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would you hope to gain?
Yeah, like more presence, maybe better remembrance, right? Uh some kind of transformation that actually lasts.
Mhm.
Maybe it's subtle, but something that it's lasting. Something like where I look back like, man, I'm really glad I went to that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, this was a week ago that I came back, and um, I feel different. So I feel different, but also there's a renewed something, uh, determination, I want to say. we had this conversation maybe in the, I don't know, second episode or something. I remember saying, I don't care about enlightenment anymore. And when I got to the retreat, maybe like a day or so in, I was like, oh fuck, I care again.
But carrying in like a good way, like
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't know. I was really obsessed with awakening for a long time, maybe 10, 12 years ish. Is it only in the last few years, maybe 3, 4 years that I got to that place where I was like, I don't even care anymore. I just want to live my life fully. Um, and it just wasn't doing me any good to focus on it anymore and like try to brute force my way into enlightenment or whatever. So I think that was an important phase to go through. But now, through this experience, it highlighted to me how it's like both are true for me. It's
that you
like,
care and you don't care.
yeah, yeah, that there is a sense of it doesn't even matter because it's our true nature. So it's here. There's nowhere to get to. There's nothing to do. It's not special. It's just, it's here. It's everything
Hmm.
all the time. So what are we seeking for? But there is a way of being that is, it's like you can be here and you can be settled into what's here, the truth of reality in this moment, that you can be grounded in that and embodied in it, living it, or you could just be in it and not really knowing that you're in it. And it does make a difference. And I see it and I feel it when I'm here, when I'm fully here. I can tell the difference is palpable for me, probably for other people. And that's also what I experienced talking with the Roshis, was just to feel how here they are. And it's not like they're beyond their human shit. You can't get beyond that, as far as we know, to some degree. And so I was actually, this leads into, I think, the conversation about the unconscious and some of this other stuff because I started to think like, does addressing stuff on the relative level even matter? If the human mind is the way it is, if this is its nature, is reactivity, it's to move toward what it likes, to move away from what it doesn't like, to struggle, to try and solve problems. If this is what it does, is there even a point to going through some of these processes of trying to heal? One of the Roshis, he was talking about something specific to me, but he said it's like rearranging furniture on the Titanic. And I've just been thinking about, I'm not, I do think it's important to address stuff on the relative, but there was something in me that was like, is it? Just asking the question, because when I'm resting as the wholeness of this moment, the divine reality, there's no problem. So then what am I doing? Spending so much time trying to address problems. I don't know, what is that? Does it bring up anything for you?
Yeah, I've thought about it a bit because it's been just coming up in my awareness. And maybe this is another sign. I don't know. Okay, so no, all right. Well, here's what one part of me thinks is I do think it's important, at least in my experience. I don't know. I don't think I would have had a successful mindfulness practice without addressing some of the unconscious stuff. It seems to me and it feels to me as I address more of that, I actually get more in touch with my true nature. It's easier to accept that which is and to embody it. Um, so I actually do think it's important because, for one, I don't know if everyone will be on board with wanting to become a lifelong meditator or to embrace non-duality, to even go to retreat or whatnot. Maybe they don't like, they just like don't jive with meditation, possibly. I also think that you can alleviate suffering because suffering is relative to like whatever problem you have. If you alleviate the suffering in that context, they're happy, at least for, as in relation to that thing, right? If they had panic attacks, they come to you, they stop having panic attacks. Yo, that's exactly what therapy is for me. So yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. It was more of a, I guess it like viewing one side of the paradox. And if I'm just looking at that side, then it's like, oh yeah, we don't need to do anything. We could all just go, just sit somewhere forever,
yeah,
and that would be
that'd
just
be that'd be dope.
fine. Um, yeah, there's a line of thought here that I don't totally have uh, access to yet. But I think what you were saying is important. That yeah, we can decrease suffering though. So it doesn't matter if everything's whole and perfect and there's actually no problem. If that's the case, then we might as well decrease suffering. What else are we gonna do?
I guess like, would you say that there's a process of disidentifying with the problem?
Yeah, we talked about that in episode 5,
Oh wow, okay.
which I know
All
because
right.
I just edited it. But
Gotcha.
uh, but yeah, I think we were talking about that whole thing of, well, the context was what is it? Unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence to
Yeah,
uh
I love that.
conscious competence to unconscious
Competence.
competence,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, and I think that's a big part of it, that movement. I mean, that kind of describes it, it's like becoming aware of the thing, whatever the thing is. Like, okay, now I'm aware of it, but it's still a thing. It's still a problem. Um, no, stop it. And then, oh, so yeah, there's not being aware of the problem, there's becoming aware of the problem, then there is consciously changing your relationship to the thing, which then makes it not even feel like a problem anymore. It's like not a serious, at one time it felt like a serious problem. Now it doesn't feel like a serious problem. And then, and then it becomes, then it integrates into the unconscious that this thing, whatever this thing is that I thought was a problem, it depends on whatever, on what we're talking about. But this is, I think a lot of the time for me, the way that it happens is that I feel like this is a really serious issue. I got to figure this out. And then over time, it's like I discover more space for this part of myself that's going through this thing. And then um, because of that, it's like the problem actually gets smaller. It doesn't feel as serious anymore. It gets lighter. And then it's like often it shifts on its own without me even needing to do anything else besides that. Plus life experience. Like as I'm going through that process, I'm also living my life and my experiences are informing that process. So, for example, to make it a little more tangible, it's like I sometimes I feel like it's really easy for me to just be me, just let go and just talk to people, strangers, whoever, doesn't matter. Sometimes I feel it's really easy. And then other times I feel like it's not easy. I feel like contracted and like I don't like the state that I'm in and that people are going to feel that and it's going to mess up our connection or something. And so then I feel nervous. This is basically social anxiety. And so I might be attending to this in my own process of working on disidentifying from some part in there or some aspect of that experience. And then I go to the coffee shop and I have an interaction and the interaction either triggers something or it highlights something or whatever. Usually it triggers something and it's an opportunity for me to discover even more space for me to be exactly as I am. And then that informs the process and supports me with a deeper disidentification. Did that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
And in episode 5, I was talking about, I think it was then, about some parts work stuff that I do with people and the process of separating from an aspect of experience. But what's interesting, I did want to talk a little bit about this with you, was that because you had mentioned something in a previous episode that I think it was maybe just one time when you did mushrooms, that you realized that there, or you were noticing that there aren't any parts.
That's right. Yeah. Strange experience. Yes.
And that's how I felt all week at the meditation retreat.
Crazy. Okay. Yeah.
I'm I'm sitting there watching the resistance happen and the struggle and stuff, and there was pretty much nothing in me that wanted to label this as, oh, that's my inner child, or this is that, and this is that. It was just, it didn't seem to matter. And I'm just so curious about that because at other times, it's, I think it's important to say when I'm talking about parts that I don't think they are there. I don't think you have an inner child. I don't think you have an internalized parent. Like it's not a distinct part. It's more of a metaphor to describe a way of relating.
Right. Yeah,
And that
exactly.
that is important, I think. That's the most important part of it. And that's why I think
Oh,
that it that from what I know of IFS, that it just sometimes maybe it's not IFS itself, but the way people use it, that it reinforces too many parts as if they're actually real distinct things
right.
rather than metaphors that just represent how you're relating to yourself.
Yeah. The way that I've been presented is that IFS does teach that there are literal parts.
Mm.
But I guess this gets like super philosophical, right? Because and parts is just like the colloquial language that we use, right, for ego state or a subpersonality. And it gets into a deep philosophical question of like, well, what is what constitutes a personality? Because I'm sure you've seen this yourself in your own work. I've seen it looked like a complete shift in personality. Like you could tell that this person was identified as with their inner child. Like it just like where did this person go? Like it felt like oh my gosh, like she like shifted into this totally different person. It felt like that. Now, do we say like yeah, she's a different person? Like obviously not, but um so yeah, it gets into like some interesting questions. Like it is a metaphor, that's true. But like at what point do you say like, oh, this does feel like a different personality? Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a good exploration. I mean, yes, I have seen that a big difference in the uh, the state of somebody, the energy, their expression. Like I said earlier, someone could be talking really fast and going over all the details of something, and then a few minutes later, because we do a meditation together, and they sink into feeling and into their body, and then they're talking with a different tone, very much slower, obviously more grounded and connected. And yeah, do we want to call that inhabiting inhabiting a different part? Um, I don't
yeah,
maybe I don't know. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. It's like I guess it's at a certain point it doesn't really matter what is factual. It actually just matters what's practical.
right, right. And I guess like, and I'm asking myself this question too, because you mentioned that it's maybe the most important thing is that we understand that these are just metaphors. And there's this whole like, I don't want to say debate. It's not really a debate. I think that um, people want to flex and show how smart they are, or whatever, it's marketing, I get it. But like people online, like hypnotists online will try to correct other hypnotists and say like, hey, like the subconscious mind doesn't exist, right? There's no such thing as a subconscious mind. It's a metaphor. Okay, great. You know. And I guess like what about understanding that these parts are just metaphors? What is important about that? If you and I'm asking myself the same thing. I don't know if I have an answer right now, but um yeah, why is it important?
My cat is bothering me. Can you hear her?
No, actually, I can't. I can't.
Later.
Or or is the your cat just another name for your inner child? Kidding.
Uh-huh.
No.
So, yeah, why is it important to understand that parts are a metaphor? Well, I think it's practically important, which again, to me, and this is actually what I love about Zen too, is it's insanely practical. And when you strip it down to the bare bones, you don't even need you don't even need anything. You don't need to read anything. You don't need to learn anything. You could go in totally blind and just sit there regularly with an inquisitive mind. So, there is a little bit of context that helps um, to just know that you're approaching it with curiosity and openness, and then you will discover the true nature of reality. And how do you know that it's true? Well, because it's practically applicable. If it wasn't true, then it wouldn't work. It would be an inaccurate map of reality and it wouldn't allow you to navigate. But if it allows you to navigate reality not only better, but way better, that's an indicator of truth to me. That's about as true as we're gonna get. And so this, I think, is true also with parts work that it is practical. It's practically applicable in terms of learning about how you relate to various aspects of your experience. But if you think that there are literal all these parts, and I guess I don't know, maybe someone believes they have to perpetually manage them all, then you could get stuck with that. You could, and I know people, I've seen it, or where it's like everything is some part of them expressing. And how many parts? I mean, there's maybe unlimited parts. And it's like, it actually at some point seems impractical if you take it too far.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I've worked with for myself personally. It's got to be in the hundreds. I
Of parts?
swear. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's pretty insane. Uh, so it's interesting that you say that. I still come from a parts uh orientation. It's just what comes up in my subconscious, which is again still another model, right? It's not a perfect model, but I think it's a useful model. Um, but yeah, I can definitely see, and I think that's like where I was gonna answer as well. Like I think that people can take this a little bit too dogmatically. And I was kind of in that place with IFS, internal family systems, but I still think it's a great modality, and I still use that framework when it's useful. Um, but it's still just a framework, and I think people do get stuck that like they can't do anything else other than IFS, and that's just not true, you know? Um, yeah, like there's so many different processes that could accomplish the same thing. Uh, and it's like you have to ask yourself, what did people do before there was IFS? Like, how the heck did they get better? Yeah. So, yeah.
The way I think about it is I've said it in different ways over time. Sometimes I frame it as it's about your self relationship. It's about how you relate to yourself. And then that's where parts work comes in handy because again, it's like metaphors that represent the way that you're relating to yourself in different circumstances. And I still like that, but I feel like it's more accurate to say to talk about how we relate to experience. Like to we can just take the self out of the picture and then it's like it's just how you relate to whatever experience is present. Um, but again, practically that doesn't matter all that much. You could say that's relating to yourself. You could say it's relating to experience. Doesn't totally matter. And maybe this is one of the things that makes me grateful that you and I are creating this podcast here is because we've talked some about this in the first episode and other times, but just that to me healing and psychotherapy is an art, and because it's an art, it's much more uh, kind of like Zen in this way. It's it's non-dogmatic. There is no um, particular framework that will encapsulate the whole thing. And if you latch onto one, you'll experience some effectiveness with it, but it stops somewhere and maybe even causes some harm if you're trying to force somebody into a box that they don't belong in.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is, excuse me. I think this, and I hate to keep bringing up IFS because all other models I'm sure can suffer the same, uh, flaws. Uh, I think this is where IFS has gotten into trouble because it has actually, like in the past, uh, been mixed in with some controversy. And I think it's because of what you just mentioned, is that people are trying to fit people into the IFS, like everything into the IFS model and trying to shoehorn them in. And like the client's obviously like resisting, right? And they're not getting it. And I guess sometimes maybe it is good to push. It depends, right? Depends. Like you have to use your therapeutic intuition. Sometimes you do need to, encourage your client to try new things, right? And get out their comfort zone to see some kind of therapeutic benefit. But I think if you're pushing them like way too much and they clearly, they're just not getting it, you might need a pivot. And I think because they were trying to push this model so hard, it just went south and there was controversy. You can look it up. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know about that, but I'm not that surprised. I mean, maybe this is just part of human nature. This is what we do. This is like we were doing that with CBT. The whole field was doing that with CBT, just trying to cram people into that box. And then there was pushback against that, and then everything became about, being trauma informed and somatic approaches. And now people are doing it with that,
Hmm.
where
Yeah, fair enough.
cramming people into that box. And it's just they're just different brushes to use. It's all, if it's useful, then do it.
Yes.
But it's not like the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like the art metaphor. Now I'm getting it. Now I'm making those connections, right? And that's good. I don't know if you were trying to use continue on the metaphor, but then I just like, oh yeah, the paintbrush art. Okay. Yeah, and it is an art, right? It is. And as you are learning this art, right, it's like, how do you figure out which paintbrush to use? I'm sure that just comes with experience, perhaps. Um, maybe your client will let you know. Oh,
Yeah, and if we're really like taking the metaphor all the way home, it's like sometimes something's going to be a sculpture, sometimes it's going to be a piece of music, sometimes it's going to be a painting. Sometimes it'll be with watercolor, or sometimes it'll be oil painting or whatever. It's like every person, not just the person, but them, who they are in this moment, showing up with their particular context right now is always different. Even if there are common threads, which there are all the time, but it's still a unique presentation. And more or less, if I try to cookie cutter anything, it's not going to be as effective as if I'm truly attuned to the moment. And I do try sometimes to cookie cutter,
Me
not
too.
inten not intentionally, maybe, or maybe intentionally, but I get on something, like this week I'm really into this thing. And so
Yeah,
then I'm like trying that out with people. And it's fine. You don't have to not do that either. So if you find something that is replicable, and it seems to work for multiple people in different situations, then cool. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it too. There's no rule against cookie cutters in art. You can use a stencil if you want to.
It's true. It's true. And I think sometimes people like that. And it's like training wheels, yeah. Or it doesn't even have to be training wheels. It could just be this is what you want to make the art about, you know. Maybe you just really want a star cookie. So, yeah. What
And
was
and
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, well, it just made me think of something that I see sometimes in therapy land, where therapists, they get lost. They don't know what to do with a particular client. They've tried the IFS stuff, they've tried traditional CBT, they brought in some mindfulness, but nothing seems to work. And this is maybe a much longer conversation that we could have at a later time, but they are limiting themselves to the medium, where it's like they think that they are the paintbrushes or the whatever tool they're using to do the art. They've been handed that, and they think that they are that they're like limited by this structure, as opposed to really knowing you're an artist. So relax, let go. Sometimes you have to let go of the structures you've been given, and really tune into the moment and not know what the hell is going to happen. This is art. This is doing, if you're, it's not always like this, but if you're creating art, you're coming from the unknown. You're creating something from the unknown. And that's what therapy is. And that you can just try different things.
Don't let the insurance companies hear you.
Just kidding. We are
Yeah.
treating mental illness.
Oh.
Speaking of which, um, do you want to go down this road of the depression, anxiety, mental
Yeah,
illness?
sure, sure. Why not?
Um, you know what? Before we do that, because we've already been in this other area,
Hmm.
I don't know if we've ever done this. I don't even know how I would do it. But what can you define for the audience what the unconscious is?
Yeah.
And I just want to throw in there if it's different from the subconscious, or what the difference is
Yeah.
between these.
Okay. Yeah. We need to get a psychoanalyst to in the panel. Um, the way that I don't look at the unconscious or subconscious as different. I know that Freud did and other psychoanalytic thinkers. I just use them interchangeably. I simply mean it is a metaphor, right? There's no like thing in the brain that's like, oh, this is where your unconscious mind is located, right? There's nothing like that. But simply put, it's a set of processes that you are not conscious of in your everyday awareness. And that might be certain emotions, certain patterns, behaviors, thoughts, right? Beliefs, maybe all those things, right? That you're just not really aware of. And I would say, and this is not like a great definition, but a way of analogy to oversimplify things and generalize. I would say that the unconscious mind is the feeling mind. It is the emotional mind. It is the mind which speaks in the language of metaphors, of symbols, of dreams. And you can, to use another metaphor, and I know I'm oversimplifying, right? I'm not a neuroscientist. A neuroscientist would not say this, but since this is kind of familiar in everyday language, I'll use it, right? The way I think of the unconscious mind is more like right-brained, right? And the conscious mind is more left-brained. Uh, so I don't know if that's like a working definition or if you want me to expand. Took a long time to explain that, but that's how I would view it. And the unconscious mind does all sorts of weird, crazy things, right? Which is why like when we have the dream, it's just like what the crap? Like what is this? It is La La Land, right? It's just it doesn't make any sense because to our rational mind, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But the to the unconscious, it's what the it's a language that it speaks. So yeah.
Yeah. I like, oh, okay. I thought I was muted. I like that. I like that. That's a good description. So it's not necessarily a literal thing. It's a metaphor, kind of.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
but also it's again, I guess it's one of those things that it's like it's a lived reality,
Yes. Yeah.
whether or not we fully understand what it even is.
Right. We're just using the label to describe a certain phenomena or a set of processes, right? And actually we could say the same thing for anxiety, for depression. It is a process. Those things are processes. There's no like thing, there's not like a bottle of anxiety that I can drink, right? Or depression or something, right? I do like bloodletting and it'll just like let out all the depression, there's nothing like that. Um, but it's a helpful label, it's a helpful metaphor, it's a useful model, and we do this all the time, right, with the English language. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, and like I don't always say that it's a metaphor, and I'll speak as if it's a real thing because it's helpful. Um, yeah.
And it's real enough in experience. Um, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about it is because I think that it actually, I mean, how long has it been since Freud? Uh, over 100 years, yeah. I forgot when he
My
died.
my my history is has it been over 100 years though?
I don't know. Well,
I'm pretty sure
let's look it
it
up.
might be close to it, right?
I know, like William James was over 100 years ago.
Wow.
Um,
Because we have footage of like young, so I don't know if it's been that long.
he was born in 1856, died in 1939.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so
So
almost.
yeah, so basically. 100 years. So and yet the understanding of the unconscious has not integrated into uh, pop psychology because I see it all the time. I see people talking about personal development stuff or let's just say like negative thinking, for example, and they're just completely excluding the existence of the unconscious. They'll just say things like, "Well, you just know, just know that you're good enough," or something like that. Just
Right.
if you're going out to ask a woman out and just like talk yourself up a bit. Just know that you're good enough. Think positive, and you'll be great.
Right.
And but the lived reality of that, if you have, especially if you have a lot of anxiety, is you could do all that stuff, and then when you approach her, your whole body's shaking and your voice is trembling, and because there's stuff in the unconscious
Yeah.
that isn't addressed by simply stating something consciously one
Agreed.
one time or even.
Yeah. 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, it's funny because that's been what you described has been the bane of my existence or my experience, right? And I'm one of those people that's really into personal development, and it just never seemed to work for me. I would, I knew what to think. I knew that I should be confident. I knew that I should love myself, and all the these like helpful aphorisms, or they could be helpful to some degree and maybe unhelpful, right? And when it's just said in a way that's very dismissive, right? Or patronizing. But like I knew all the right answers, right? Consciously. But my reality was a totally different experience. And it could be frustrating. It could be not only frustrating but disheartening, right? Confusing. And it's like, what's wrong with me? Like why is this not working? It seems to be working for other people, right? But not for me. And it wasn't until I discovered experientially, because I'm sure like all of us kind of know there's this something called the unconscious or the subconscious, right? It's in our everyday language, I would say, in a way. Um, but it's different to where when you actually experience something from the unconscious. So for the longest time, like I thought I was the nicest person ever. And I truly believe that I'm not an angry person. I'm just not an angry person. And even my ex-girlfriend told me like, oh, like you could never hurt a fly. Like that's the feeling I get from you. That's the vibe I get from you. And you know what? I part of me was probably like very like proud about that too. I was like, yeah, yeah, I'm just so nice, you know. But lo and behold, like through a series of events, I came to some kind of workshop, and I'm sure I've discussed this, but just to reiterate, and we were doing some kind of experiential exercise meant to like trigger you, literally trigger emotions. And I realized one that I've been numbing my emotions, suppressing them. And then when it came out, like all this anger just came out. And I didn't even know what it was. Like I was just shaking. I'm like, what the heck is happening? Like, and I just felt like all this like heat and like shaking and it felt like anger, but then I was like, what is going on? And it's so strange, man. And especially if you've ever been hypnotized, right? It is the strangest feeling for you to consciously see something and then like there's this unconscious response and you're just like watching your hand move just all on its own, right? That's what it feels like. That's why I like the metaphor of the unconscious mind because it feels like there is this other mind. It feels like it. So, um, yeah, it's one thing to like talk about it, which is good. It's good that we're talking about it, but actually living it and experiencing it for yourself, I think that's the real game changer. And that's why I'm kind of like super passionate about this stuff. I think in the same way that you're very passionate about non-duality and meditation, the true nature of reality, because I think you've like experienced that. You didn't just talk about it, you didn't just like read it in a book. I'm sure you did, but I mean, it's not just the reading in the book. Like you actually have experienced it and you live it on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah, I think that's why I'm like very passionate about this stuff because it's just suppressing everything, or not suppressing, excuse me. Suppressing is conscious, which is what we need. Sometimes we do need to suppress things, right? It's not appropriate to just burst out in anger or burst out in tears in a public setting, in a very important dinner, right? Like that we do need sometimes need to suppress and hold things back to live in society. But repression is subconscious, and that's when we learn, usually from a very young age, perhaps it's not okay to be angry. I love I think the guy was Robert Firestone, but I read it in Healing the Shame That Binds Us by John Bradshaw. And he was like one of the OG personal development guys, but like a therapist, psychologist. And he used this concept of um, the fantasy bond. I was blanking for a second. The fantasy bond. And it's when the child feels like they're in this double bind, right? Like there's this caregiver here. This caregiver is supposed to love me, supposed to care for me, but I'm not getting that. Perhaps this caregiver is just like totally just not what they're supposed to be. But in order for me to at least have the feeling that I had a happy childhood to survive, I create this fantasy that it wasn't so bad. Actually, they were really, really great, right? They were really nice in these ways. Like we create this fantasy so we can survive. So maybe like we don't want to get angry at our parents because understandably they're our parents and they took care of us. So then we have this like all this like conflict, right? But it's all unconscious. In fact, for the longest time, I didn't realize how much rage I had against my parents. And even now, recently, this is recent too. Recently, the rage, a lot of the rage was toward my mother. But more recently, I've realized there's been rage against my dad too, for different reasons. And this is like, it's recent. I swear, all the therapy sessions, all the IFS, I really searched and I was like, I don't think I feel angry against my dad. And so there's layers to this thing, right? Um, I don't know where I was going with that. I guess it's just like all these things that the repression, right? That we learn that from a young childhood. So we might have some kind of unconscious belief that we're not aware of that could be causing this type of pattern, but could be causing the suppression. Yeah, I guess that's where I was going.
And that just reminded me of something you said. Maybe it was in episode 5, since that's fresh on my mind. That you were talking about how you've become more of a fan of long-term therapy uh, over time because
Oh,
you said something like the subconscious. These aren't your words, but that it has its own like timing in a way. Like some things
right.
they're just not ready to come up. And it doesn't matter how hard you look for them, you're not going to see it until something happens that's outside of our control, that it's just an orchestration of life that then allows it to open and
Yeah.
for you to touch it and be surprised. Oh.
I don't know about you. I'm like always surprised. I'm like, holy crap, that was there. I can't believe it. I thought I dealt with this, that type of thing.
Yeah. I definitely know that feeling. I think maybe I'm losing the surprise factor. Now I'm just like, oh, yeah. More, oh, like I'm not, yeah, it's just not quite as surprising. But no, there's always a bit of a uh, there's always a bit of a surprise, at least of just the conscious mind seems to think a lot that once we deal with something, it's gone. Or like once it appears to be gone, then that it's gone, which makes sense. But that's the different. That's what we're talking about. The unconscious. It's like, well, yeah, but you don't know what's there. This one, whatever the pattern is, this one pattern, maybe it's infinite.
I hope not. And I don't think that's true, actually. And maybe that's maybe I'm wrong. To me, it's energy, right? Um, these patterns, these emotions, whatever it is, and there's only a finite amount of energy vested in that. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't actually think it's infinite. I think it feels infinite though. It's like, I mean, the experiences, I can't imagine what it would be like to not have this thing in me. Like whatever the thing is, we'll stick with the, approaching women thing
Hmm.
that it's like it for many, and this applies to it in a lot of different scenarios, but like it's just been there my whole life. So I don't know what it feels like to live life without that. And
Right.
therefore, it feels impossible, actually, that there could even be a reality where this is not there.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
you can't imagine what you don't know. 'Cause-
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
which so which is why I'm really glad we're talking about this because I just think this is, you were talking about how you're extremely passionate about it. And I think I am too. I think it's that this is at the core of stuff. It's like the non-dual stuff. Yeah, obviously I'm really passionate about it, and I think it is really practically important too. However, I would be so satisfied if we could get the entire planet to wake up to the reality of the unconscious.
Hmm.
That would be enough.
Hmm.
That would
You think so?
I mean, enough for a while.
Oh, I guess like it depends how you define awaken. Because, and I think this is where therapy can go wrong, um, is it becomes okay, let me separate. There's two different kinds of insight, or maybe there's a gradient of insight, right? There's intellectual insight, and then there's more experiential insight, let's just say, or some version of that. You can use whatever words you want. Um, and I think the trap is like we can understand the unconscious or that there's an unconscious or even, experience it in some way, but then it becomes a defense where we start to just intellectualize everything.
Mm.
And it's like all this insight, but it's not the insight that changes you. It's the insight that plays into a defense of, oh, I know my entire history, right? Let me regurgitate my entire traumatic history, but consciously. And I can it just reinforces the problem, right? And I think that's where, yeah, the danger lies, where we're just reinforcing all of this intellectualizing and not actually experiencing change.
Yes. Yeah, very well said. That made me think of I mean, I've had clients like this and I see people out there like on TikTok. I've seen some videos where people are talking about this that it's basically the super self-aware. client uh,
That's
who
me,
also
yeah.
feels well, the experience they often have is they go to therapy and they know all the things. And so there's basically nothing the therapist could say that it's going to be a revelation cognitively, you know. So a lot of the time, well, in this particular TikTok I'm thinking of, the person was talking about how, basically the therapist is there to let the person know how good of how good their insight is, like the person says they describe everything accurately and they're like, well, this is what's going on in my unconscious or whatever. And then the therapist is like, well, yeah, it sounds like you know what's going on. And obviously there's more to the story,
Yes.
which is what you're getting at.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's, there's a slight intimidation factor, right? It's like, oh, shit, you got this figured out. Maybe you're analyzing better than me, Who knows? Um, where was I going with that? Crap. I was going somewhere. But
And this is why it's, I think, really important for this is where the trauma informed stuff and somatic approaches and whatnot, I think is really cool and necessary, and to for therapists, particularly therapists like me, who uh, it's like I'm very self-aware, obviously, obviously, uh, and uh, and I love to intellectualize about stuff. It's fun for me. And so I could easily get stuck there with somebody. And I have to be careful about that because I do think, again, there's an art to it where sometimes someone's actually not ready to open into feeling. They need to go through some sort of cognitive process of increasing their understanding and their insight, in order to get to the place where there's an openness and willingness to drop all that and just be with your feeling. But there's no fucking manual for that. There's no roadmap.
yeah,
So some people are ready immediately to do that.
right.
Other people might take a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might have been me,
Mm.
which is why I was a hard client. Yeah. Uh, and I don't know if you can share more about, because I want to understand too, because I agree with you that maybe not everyone is ready to just go and like, let's just feel our feelings. Maybe it's overwhelming. Maybe they can't feel their feelings at the moment. Um, do you know what does that cognitive process look like? Is it explaining more of a framework of feelings? Is it maybe untying some bad beliefs they have around that? Like, what does that process look like?
I don't know. I think this is maybe one of the things that it's just different for everybody. Um, I Yeah, because I have definitely had the experience, and I can feel it. This is one of the things where it's a practice to stay attuned to the energy of a session and what's uh, where the other person is coming from, and when like I can feel it when something lands for them, and to pay attention to that feeling in my own body, my own energy system, that's really helpful. And I can also feel when it doesn't land in their body and in their feeling, and it's just staying up in the mind. And so I have definitely had that experience of describing a process of over intellectualization, um, and the importance of feeling. And maybe I'm presenting it in a mindfulness context too, of just being present with what's going on in your body, the sensation, and then emotions. And then someone gets it up here, but no further. It goes no further. And I see it happen. And and so when I see that happen, it makes me want to try to create an experience. Like, let's just stop talking about this. It's not going anywhere right now. So let's drop into a meditation. Let me guide somebody into paying attention to the body and to their emotional experience. And I'm just going to describe an experience that I had with somebody where I was guiding them through this, but they were not able to feel something. Like it just, they just kept being distracted by thoughts and getting sucked into some sort of train of thought. And actually, they were able to identify that they were having trouble feeling and maybe even feeling the body. And so I tried different things, and this is where it becomes an art and an experimentation of just let's just try some things, see how it goes, and we get some information from it. And so um but I'm always conscious of when my mind wants to turn something into a problem, to judge something as a problem, like, okay, so this person, they can't feel, um and I'm wanting to create an experience of feeling for them. And so this, now I'm in a problem. This is a problem. How do I get past this? How do I get them to feel something? And I want to notice that when I'm doing that and stop it. Let it go. Because that's not where they are right now. I want to be with where they are. So so then it's like, okay, well, let's stay with this feeling of numbness. That is a feeling, or it's maybe the experience of a lack of a feeling, but there's something there. So let's stay with that. And then I might ask them, the famous question of, where is that at in your body? Where do you feel it in your body? Um, what thoughts or stories do you notice about it? That sort of thing. So this is where I think it's so useful to not be stuck in some sort of dogma and just one framework of how you're approaching things, because I want to be able to just flow through, like, let's bounce up to the cognitive, let's go back down to the body, let's go into feeling, go everywhere.
I like it.
And through doing that, it does seem to, something happens.
Hmm.
Something happens. And I have had good experiences of, maybe not that session, maybe it happens later, but somebody opening up into deeper feeling, and them, like you described, them being surprised. Like they didn't even know
Hmm. Hmm.
that was there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of questions. As I say that, it's like, um, what was the last thing you said? You were talking about they're surprised that they're even there. Um, okay, I guess I'll ask this question since I remember it. Well, I guess when it comes to being able to flow and kind of like you're using all your different paintbrushes, would you say that would be a good idea to learn different modalities and different orientations so that you can pull from them?
Probably. I have a bias, if you didn't know, um, for the experiential. So to me, it depends what we're talking about, but as much as possible, if I can learn something by applying it on myself, then I'm gonna know it way better than if I just read about it or if I attend a training
Sure.
and I see all these PowerPoints about it or something. Even if it's applied to specific, case presentations or whatever, I think that's cool and it can be important, it can be helpful, but I'm just like so more on the other wavelength of experiential learning. And so then it's like, for example, I don't even know when I'm doing CBT because it's on the level of unconscious competence now.
Mm. Hmm.
So I just do it.
Right. Yeah, and I guess like it depends how you define what CBT is. Like, because I thought about it more, and I probably do that, and I just don't necessarily call it CBT. Maybe
Yeah.
depends. Because like maybe we can go on an excursion really quick and then come back because is Socratic questioning, does that count as CBT? Because like one part of me feels like, oh, Socratic questioning is CBT, but then another part of me is like, well, but does CBT really own Socratic questioning, or is that like honestly just more of just general psychotherapy and like other modalities would also do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, how do you define Socratic questioning?
Um, I am just asking curious questions in order to understand their problem deeper. Uh, I know that's kind of vague.
Yeah,
I
so
might, yeah,
so here it says the goal of Socratic questioning to help the person examine their assumptions, beliefs, and logic.
right. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
Um, and I guess the goal of CBT is focusing on identifying and changing maladaptive thoughts and behaviors. They seem to go hand in hand to me.
right, right. Yeah, because like I guess you could also argue that like with psychoanalysis, they do a certain form of Socratic questioning as well, right? And it can be very annoying, right? You ask a question to your therapist, and your therapist says, "Well, what do you think it means? What would it mean if I answered your question?" You know, like that annoying shit. Um, so I think there's like there's a level of Socratic questioning there, and I'm sure that person centered does the same type of thing, right? Like like everyone kind of, I don't know. Anyways,
Yeah. Well, I see a doorway into another conversation, which I know we'll have later about um, just the whole medical model and insurance and how it's like they view these things like it's a closed box, like CBT, it's its own thing, and you just do CBT, and then you're gonna get the results or whatever,
yeah,
and that's how it should be. But there's just so much overlap between these different modalities, and then also just being a human and having a human conversation, that it's often not that clear cut. I know
yeah,
there are people that just do straight CBT or do straight IFS or whatever, and uh, like we said, they can get some results with that, but it's going to be there's a limit.
yeah, yeah. And I was just, I think this ties in with our conversation, right? Because I was thinking about flowing, right, and incorporating all these different modalities, and the way that I do it, and the way I conceptualize it, the way I've been taught is I do my best to take a minimalist approach to the psyche. So I make a few presuppositions, right? Like I presuppose there is unconscious processes, um, and that we can change them, you know, and you know. There is some kind of root cause. By root cause, I just mean underlying cause. And if we're able to uh, unveil that root cause and allow the unconscious mind to do its thing, or we could do a certain process that I know that will work, then I know I can create change. But like I just have like a few presuppositions about change and about the psyche, and then I approach the person with these presuppositions. I approach the client. And I do have some tools here and here and here that I can kind of weave in when I want, but I'm not coming in with like a dogmatic conclusion like, oh, it's definitely because you had some kind of abuse in childhood. All problems, all problems arise from abuse in childhood. It's like, we don't know that. I mean, it could be. Let's explore, right? So I'm not like coming in with this dogmatic conclusion. I'm just trying to keep it open with my minimalist approach and then see what happens there. That's how I view and do things.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like, I would say, very artistic of you.
Is it? Is it
I don't,
artistic? Because it doesn't sound artistic.
well, it's a particular approach to art that it's, you could go in with a basic structure of, this is even for example, I know that I'm gonna make some music. So, you know what medium you're working with, but then you're not exactly sure what direction you're gonna go. Or maybe you have, I think this is true for me, and this you didn't say it exactly like this, but that I have a pretty good idea of the general direction I'm moving and that we're moving together, me and the client. Um, and so so there's something there. There's like there's a directionality. It's not just free for all, free flowing. I have no clue what's going on, man. Um, yeah, it's not completely abstract art. Uh, most of the time.
I wanted to ask about this. Oh wait, let me preface it and then I'll ask you to color my question. Um, I have noticed as I've done more practice and I've had more sessions, I've seen more clients, I do make more, and as I read and learn more, I do make more connections in terms of understanding theory and understanding maybe what's happening in front of me, like more consciously. Like I can feel like I can consciously point out, oh, they have a belief system here. I'm seeing that. Oh, they're having this emotion, so I need to do this. I can kind of like consciously do that. It's obviously unconscious as well. But I've noticed that like I don't know, I'm not getting the magic of what I had when I was like a beginner, where I kind of didn't know what I was doing, but like I had like these like hopeful expectations about what could happen. Like I was like open to the more possibilities of cool stuff, right? Uh, and so I think maybe like more cool shit happened when I was a beginner. And now like not as much. But I'm more consciously aware of what I'm doing. And so I'm more competent in that set way. I don't know, have you noticed the same thing where like maybe you had like the Zen mind, the beginner's mind. What do you call it? Right? Is it beginner's?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where when you just started, like cool shit happened, and then when later on, like less cool shit happened, like you just didn't have that beginner's mind thing.
Um, I don't know. I'm thinking about when I first got into the field. So this was before I was doing therapy. I was just being a case manager, but doing some counseling. And Did I feel like it was, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's cooler now. Cooler shit happens now, but
Fair.
I do think I went through phases. And I think that I was actually earlier in our conversation, I was having a memory of a time, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, and the approach I was taking with people then, and how sometimes I would get dogmatic about my what I was doing, um, or if I was really interested in a particular approach, I was kind of trying to force people through it, even if it wasn't exactly working. And and I remember there have been times where it felt less magical, like there's less magic, and maybe that's important at times to just have that experience of um, kind of just drilling, just doing drills. Like you're just building the muscle of this one particular thing or these several things, and and also seeing how important it is. Like whatever those things are that you're doing, that it seems like most of the people coming to you actually need that, at least uh, at the beginning, to establish some sort of foundation before you can get more into unknown territory, maybe. Um, yeah. And then maybe also it's a choice that we can make about approaching things with beginner's mind or not.
Maybe this is where some of the Zen practices can really help, right? Oh,
Yeah, because yeah, I just never know what's going to happen. It's sometimes it's really clear, everything's really clear to me. Um, Somebody is coming and whatever they're presenting with in this moment, I'm talking about a regular client that I've been seeing for a while. And whatever they're presenting with in this moment, the emotions that are coming up, or particular schemas, thought patterns that are coming. I I feel it. I know it. I'm like, I know where that comes from, pretty much. I know what's going on there. And then we just have a pretty clear trajectory of what we do uh, to address it. Uh, but but I guess I like to just bring this into my practice, this practice of beginner's mind, that I like to bring it into my life, but into my psychotherapy practice as well, and just that I just don't know what's possible. And I want to be open to being surprised, and I want to, while I know a lot of things that work or have worked for other people, maybe something different will work better for this person in this moment. And I actually don't know, but if I grab my old tools, then I'm just going to be stuck with those, which
right.
might be fine. It's not going to cause harm, but maybe there's a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And I think it actually takes uh me stepping out of my comfort zone sometimes to maintain that beginner's mind, because sometimes I start to do stuff and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have a clear plan. I'm just like, I just have a sense of something, and then I just start to move in that direction, and that's kind of scary. It's like I don't know what's gonna happen. I could just take this person on like a weird meditation journey, and then it does nothing, or they're just weirded out. Or I say something that's just doesn't land. It's just odd, whatever. But more often than not, I'm like pleasantly surprised by what happens. And it's often not what I thought would happen, or if I had some sort of intention. It's just a different thing happens.
All sorts of goodness. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm wanting to definitely reclaim that magic while still learning and becoming both consciously and unconsciously competent. So I'll be learning psychodrama. And I had my first experience this past week. Well, experience, but I got to observe and take notes, and I actually got to participate a little bit in it. And I don't even know how to describe the experience. I like it, and it was just also like very different in a way. Like it was because it was like it's a group psychotherapy, and I haven't really done a whole lot of that. And like everyone participates, and everyone's almost like a kind of they can be like a therapist, and it's very experiential, and I would say it's very directive. And so like my style is very like non-directive, right? That's why I gravitate towards the Socratic questioning and all that. But this is like very like, oh, we're doing this. Okay, switch. All right, action. Like do this, and it's just very outside of my comfort zone in that way.
What is psychodrama?
Huh. How do I define psychodrama? It is a therapy modality that was created by Jacob and Zerka Marino. And I think they might have been psychoanalytically trained. I don't remember, but I know that they definitely disagree with Freud on a lot of things. But I would say that psychodrama is a way of using drama, reenacting different scenarios in your past or in your dreams or even just your your inner world, or just even imaginary scenarios. And obviously, it's a lot of use of metaphor. And I think it's very hypnotic in that way. And it's very gestalt. Um, so, yeah, there's like a lot of uses of different things so that you can experientially gain insight and obviously, make changes. Uh,
So this is like you said it's a group, so it's like each participant might represent certain people
yes,
or even emotions or whatever.
exactly.
And
And
then
I think,
there's like the central client who
yes,
who everyone's enacting stuff uh
with
based on this person's information or psyche or whatever.
yes, yeah. And the main person can take any role, even a role of watching and
Hmm.
being an observer. And so like the director would have people switch roles and stuff. And so like you're getting like a lot of insight in different areas, right? You can play the protagonist, you can play the side characters, right? Your mother, your father, your friend, whatever. Um, and I think the idea is that because it's so engaging, you're using your body, you're using your imagination, um, you're seeing people act it out too, right? I think it engages your mind in such a way, in my opinion, the unconscious mind. It engages the mind in such a way that maybe talk therapy sometimes can't, or talk therapy can sometimes fall into the trap of just intellectualizing. And like this, I don't know if I would say this bypasses that. I think it can bypass it because certainly some people still struggle, right? Maybe they're just not tapping into something deep in their unconscious, but I think it could really help with that process because it's so experientially engaging. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I years ago I was doing something called family constellations. You know about that?
I do. Is that talking more about intergenerational trauma, right?
Um, I guess so. I was just looking that up. Like, what's the difference between these things? Because the way you were describing psychodrama sounded pretty similar. But yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
I guess the family or the intergenerational trauma piece that did seem to be the focus. The I don't we never, as far as I know, we never acted out like something from someone's imagination or a dream or something like that. It was like always family dynamics or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hmm.
it was very somatic and energetic and kind of trippy and cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that family constellations did that. Oh.
Well, that's exciting that you're
It
doing that.
is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Why did I bring that up? I don't know if so we've been going at this for like an hour and a half or a little more than that, right?
I think over 2 hours.
Oh no, you're right. My math is just terrible. So maybe we can wrap it up and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see. There are a lot of different threads here. uh, I think there was something that I wanted to do or say. Okay, well, real quick, I wanted to go back to just stuff about the unconscious and
Yeah. Yeah.
how important it is. Oh, yeah. Whoa. I just had the flashback of how we got here. Um, because because I said something like, if I just took awakening off the table, enlightenment, non-dual realization, but could get the whole world to wake up to the reality of the unconscious, that would be enough. Um, I don't know if that's totally true, but it certainly would be a huge, huge step forward the way I'm thinking about it, which
Yeah.
isn't, I think you brought up something which was valid, but that not just to then over intellectualize everything, but to actually then, know it and feel it, to know it viscerally so that you can bring it into your moment to moment life. I mean, it just made me think of relationships, like relationship conflict, people that go to couples therapy or should go to couples therapy, that this is part of the issue. It's that people don't get it. They don't get the unconscious. That I could feel angry and know consciously that I shouldn't be, or that I'm blowing something out of proportion or whatever. Um, but then a lot of times people will identify with the conscious mind there. So they will deny the anger that they are actually feeling, or
Hmm. Okay.
they'll mask it, they'll suppress it, or
Right.
um, also because they don't want to get into conflict. They want to avoid conflict with their partner. And so, that's like a whole avalanche of stuff right there. It's just like, so you're having a feeling, but you think you shouldn't be having the feeling. And then if you express the feeling, a lot of times the partner takes it personally because they think that if you feel something, that means that it's representative of your beliefs or something. Like as if my conscious and unconscious mind are on the same page.
Yeah. Right.
And this is infinitely helpful in relationship with people to
Hmm.
be, I mean, whether it's friendships, acquaintances, people on the street, romantic partners, it doesn't matter. It's like to be able to see and know. Well, I think knowing is half the battle. Isn't that a bumper sticker or something?
I'm sure.
That if the context of your relationship includes this realization, then it's not that you won't get into conflict. That's not the point. Then you'll know that when you're getting into conflict, that it's not you fighting with your partner. It's your unconscious material fighting with their unconscious material. And basically, this is where I like to bring in the inner child stuff. It's like you you revert to your inner child state. They revert to their inner child state, and now you've got two little kids tantruming at each other.
Yep, exactly.
And so to be able to spot that in the moment and communicate it, oh, I'm however you say it, oh, I'm totally triggered right now. I'm being really reactive. I can feel how defensive I am. I am coming from this scared little boy place, whatever, however you say it. That transforms the entire fucking thing. It's like, oh, okay. So you're not just saying that I'm a worthless piece of shit. Like there's a lot of context here that's important. And you know, this might be an exaggeration a bit, but this could be the cause of like all wars and major conflicts on the planet. Certainly a factor.
It's definitely. I think there's, and I'm not becoming woke, but I'm becoming more aware of systems and not just internal family system, which is a valid system, but also other systems as well. So yeah, but yes, I would say technically, yeah, you're right, that if you change the subconscious, you would change the person and you would change the response, everything. Like it would just, you know, and that's why it's important to address the internal family system or internal whatever it is, your subconscious, right? Because like this is actually how Richard Schwartz came up with internal family systems. He was working with, I think, some kind of eating disorder. It could have been bulimia or it could have been others. And he thought, and he was a family systems guy, right? So his training is in marriage and family therapy, and so he set out to prove like family systems is the way to go. If you fix the family system, everything will be resolved, right? And lo and behold, like yes, when he worked with the family system got better, but the people with eating disorders still had eating disorders. And so he was like, man, like what the crap is what's going on, right? And so finally he did something, he listened. He listened and these people with eating disorders started to talk about, well, there's this part of me that blah 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 blah. And then he's like, oh. And then obviously he developed this internal family systems thing because or the systems training. I think that's the excuse me, that's the main contribution of families internal family systems and Richard Schwartz is that he mapped his systems thinking into the internal world. Because like technically like ego state or parts work is not a new thing, right? Yeah, you and I both know that. But I think it's his way of conceptualizing that kind of made it very unique and helpful. But why was I saying this? But yeah, so like in order to actually change something like an eating disorder, or I guess, I don't know, violent behavior, if we're talking about war, have a violent outburst, yeah, anything, right? There's always some kind of subconscious cause. And you can try to reason with the conscious mind all you want. You can try to use all the logic in the world, and you can learn about these. And I'm not like against that because I do think that's helpful. And sometimes that can even seep into the subconscious mind at the right time, you know, with the right person. But if you just consciously know stuff, then yeah, there'll always be this conflict. There's always be like, I know, conscious, but all this chaos, and inner turmoil, right? I'm not there's no alignment with the conscious and subconscious, right? So I do think like that's another way of conceptualizing therapy is like, well, we want to align the conscious and the subconscious. And I'm raising my hand, lower hand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also made me think of it's just also something I hear a lot from people. It's like they find themselves in a position where they think they should be doing something or they want to be doing something, but then they can't seem to get themselves to do it. And then they're just like, why can't I get myself to do this thing? It's just I even want to do it. And it feels really frustrating. And it's like, well, that's what happens when there's something going on in the unconscious, and you can't just use the conscious mind to force your way through it. There has to be some unraveling there to discover what's really going on, to illuminate it, and then the illumination of it um, often removes the barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important. You said, yeah, you can't force, you said force, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, like you can't force the subconscious. I like to think of the subconscious as a lover, and you don't force your lover to do things. You woo the lover. Um, yeah, the more you try to force things and try to jam things into your subconscious to create change. I mean, like, look, some people can do it, right? You can create change via force, but generally speaking, it's not a great idea, and oftentimes will have the opposite effect. Um, yeah, it's like, and this is where the metaphor I think is really useful. That I like to think of the subconscious mind as a thing, and we want to begin to build a relationship with the subconscious. It's like, dude, if you haven't attended to your needs, if you don't even know why you're angry, right? Why you're sad, why you're feeling anxious, you never took the time to just get to know that part of you. Why would it trust you when now you want to do something, right? Just like a child. It's like if you hated the child, I hate you, don't talk to me, suppress, suppress, suppress. What you're doing is wrong. Oh, by the way, now I want to do this thing. Now I want this thing from you. It's like, yeah, I don't think the child is going to respond very well, or it's a relationship. So I think as when we start to listen, we start to feel, we start to try to talk in the language of the subconscious, then then when you ask it nicely, that, hey, I want to go in this direction, it's much more likely to say, oh yeah, okay, absolutely. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that that would be I just saw a bunch of threads that we could come back to and then do a whole other episode. um, if I remember what they were. Uh, but yeah, maybe we'll just like end it there.
yeah,
Let's see. Yeah, because we also didn't get into the depression and anxiety stuff yet.
yeah.
But it ties into all of this too in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, any last thoughts that need to be said?
Yeah, I mean, I think both the Zen and mindfulness and the non-duality and seeking and inquiring about ultimate nature, the ultimate nature of things, I think that doesn't have to be at odds with more Western thinking in terms of the subconscious mind and catering to that, right? Understand the subconscious. I think it's not a either or, it's a both and more uh, type of situation, which is actually kind of in the realm of non-dual, right? Like not, right? It's not, it's one, right? So I think there's a happy marriage to those things. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've mentioned it before, but just that there's a lot you don't have to look very hard to find examples out in the world of uh we'll call them enlightened teachers or gurus who go on to abuse their students. And so you can have a really high level of spiritual development and realization, but then your unconscious mind, if unaddressed, still does what an unconscious mind does, which is create, well, some of it at least is create problems and motivate your behavior in ways that aren't actually in alignment with your deepest integrity. And so yeah, I think it's crucial. It's actually crucial that they go hand in hand. But I think what I was getting at before was that, when it comes to working with clients, like we've also talked about this, that not everyone's going to be interested in non-duality, um, or awakening or enlightenment or true nature. It's just maybe it just sounds like a fanciful, abstract concept. Um, and so for those people, I mean, I'll still talk to them about it to some degree, just to share my own experience. But I think in some ways it's more important to address the unconscious. I think that is I I have an argument happening.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear you say that. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's like if I had to choose, which I don't, I would say that what humanity needs is more healthy human expression. And and sure, actually, I think both of these can lead to more healthy human expression, focusing on awakening or focusing on shadow work. But um, yeah, I just think that if I had to choose, I hesitate. Um,
Give in. Give in to the shadow. That's good.
when I'm working with other people, for myself, it's different, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it. But when I'm working with other people, I think that it would be good enough to address the unconscious. And kind of like what you were saying at one point, that I think actually through addressing the unconscious, people get closer and closer and closer to their true nature, whether they're conscious of it or not. But I think that actually opens you up more to the possibility of experiencing that.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Can I just end with a story,
sure.
maybe? And then I remember when I was just starting this subconscious mind work that my coach made me do this loving kindness meditation. It wasn't like a mindfulness thing. I mean, I did that too, but specifically a loving kindness meditation where, you repeat to yourself, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be loved, and then you imagine sending that love to somebody else and so on and so forth, right? And I do think that is engaging the subconscious in a positive way, right? At first, I felt all this pain. Like I couldn't even tell myself that may I be well. I would just feel pain, pain, pain. But finally, it started to, and it kind of like roller coastered, right? But then finally, at some point, I don't remember, it's like 2 or 3 weeks in, or more, perhaps. All of a sudden, I felt love, and it was like an indescribable love. And it wasn't a conscious knowing, right? Like it was like a deep unconscious like bliss, and I just like laughed. Some people do that, and why did I bring that up? Why did I bring this? What were we talking about before? Because I was going to tie it in, right?
Yeah, maybe you were giving an example of addressing something on the unconscious that opens you up to the true nature.
Yeah, the true nature. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was about to forget. I felt like I opened up to my true nature. And it wasn't through non-duality. Although I guess it's in line with that, because technically loving kindness meditation comes from Buddhism, right? If I'm not mistaken. But it was like
Yeah.
more like the compassionate side, loving, yeah. So, but it affected my subconscious to the way that I actually felt, like I felt my true nature. So, yeah, I'll just end up with that.
Beautiful. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.